Hey guys, I wanted to share with you just a quick recap of my first day with the PRI course, Advanced Integration. So this is a course that I have been wanting to take for a while. Up to a few years ago, it was only offered in person, and once during the year in December right now. So for me in Kelowna to get to Lincoln, Nebraska is at minimum about a $2,000 round trip. So now that it's online or with live stream, it's really the only reason that I could take this course. But so on the first day, it's meant to bring together the three primary courses of myokinematic restoration, postural respiration, and pelvis restoration, and to take the integration of those three to an advanced level. So the first day, my thoughts were largely centered around what we talked about, this sagittal plane. So, we talk a lot about frontal plane control, which is that side-to-side movement, add and abduction. And if someone lacks frontal plane control, they're probably going to be at a risk of something happening to them, injury, or they're going to be inefficient in their movement. But what today highlighted was, if you don't get that sagittal plane set up first, your frontal plane work is really not going to be that beneficial. It's not going to be long lasting, or it's not going to be as effective or efficient, however you want to phrase it. So the sagittal plane, this forward and backward, this flexion and extension, and how we need to get this under control first. And so, with sagittal plane control comes, the other planes of movement, frontal and transverse plane, transverse in particular. So if one side moves, into flexion, the other side's moving into extension, and that can be a rotational component. And so in particular, dealing with this whole postural correction, what we're dealing with is the spine. Like how do we as human beings, bipedal people, stand upright? And that spinal orientation, how do we remain upright? And then how do we move? So we are not a species that is meant to be just stationary, but we move with one side advancing forward and the other side advancing backwards. So if our postural pattern is stuck in such a way that it's not allowing one side to go back and the other side to go forward, we're going to have to compensate in some way to make that movement happen. So we just talked, the entire day about this sagittal plane, and man, I was thinking about what it's like to take a course from Ron, and I've been watching Star Wars with my son, so I thought about approaching the Death Star, and then all of a sudden you're that X-Wing that just dips into the trench, and then it's like full speed and like lasers are just shooting at you like crazy. So it's kind of what it feels like when you're taking a class from Ron is, he starts and then he just goes. And honestly, I relish the opportunities to learn from him. I'm very fortunate to have been able to a few times, once in person. I really hope to get back there to Lincoln, Nebraska at some point in my career to try and learn from him in person again. But we just, again, reiterated the Postural Institute, their emphasis on this left AIC pattern, so a left pelvis that is more anteriorly tilted and externally rotated and abducted from the inlet, right? And then a right BC pattern, so a right brachial chain that is, more facilitated. So you would see an orientation to the right through the pelvis and the lumbar spine, and then we're trying to get back to the left. And so that right BC is trying to sort of pull us back to the left. And then the integration of, the neck and the cranium and the sphenoid and the jaw and the temporal bones, and how all of that is at play with posture. And so just that emphasis of spinal orientation, this upright, this position that we want to get to, and then this sagittal plane, like how it's so important for us to get the sagittal plane right first before we really deal with anything else. And that's just going to allow our nervous system to actually accept what it is that we're trying to do. So, if you go and see a therapist, any therapist, and they say, well, you're out of alignment, your one pelvis is different than your other side. Like, yes, of course, that is a totally human thing. Add in our handedness, our dominance, and then add in our daily lives. We are dominant on one side, and all of us are dominant on the right side. So me as a lefty is still dominant on the right side of my body, and that has to do with that larger diaphragm on the right side, the liver on the right side. I am more centered over my right hip. It's just easier to be over there. So for me, add on 25, 30 years of playing volleyball as a left-handed player. My left hand is above me, so I'm down on my right side even more than I might be if I was a right-hander. And so you think about, these postural patterns. It's a nervous system situation. So I don't think stretching is going to help. Do not stretch your hamstrings. I'll say it. You don't need to stretch your hamstrings. Tension is created in our body to create this uprightness. And then tension is created in order for us to move forward. So we will develop tension where our nervous system thinks we need to develop tension in order for us to remain upright and move forward. And that becomes a patterned response, and there will be dominance. Now we want that asymmetry to become functionally symmetrical. We will never be anatomically symmetrical. We will always be anatomically asymmetrical. So our goal is to try and become functionally symmetrical. That means my left side, my left diaphragm, my left abs have to work harder to try and pull my center of mass over to the left side. Breathe there, but then get back to my right side and then get back to my left side. So it's not just about getting to neutral. That is one goal. That is kind of our first goal, is like, hey, let's find the middle. But then the next goal is let's go to one side and then back to neutral and then back to the other side. And we're doing this alternating pattern. That is our end goal, is to be able to deal with both sides of the spectrum. So today, this sagittal plane, like, how do we flex and extend throughout all these systems, these spirals? How do we get on top of each other so that our spirals can actually translate, instead of being too extended on one side and then I'm hyper extending in order for that spiral to twist, right? And you just think about, a spiral that's not centered, and it's one side's under compression and one side's under decompression. And then we try and twist that. Well, the side that's under compression is going to get twisted and compressed even further, right? And so then lay that pattern on you for a long time, or add, athletic movements, specific athletic movements on top of that. Add in a surgery, add in an accident or an injury, and those patterns are probably going to become even more solidified. And so we just want to, train ourselves to, one, get to neutral, but two, like, how do we functionally deal with this oscillation from side to side? So the first day was a lot of talk about this sagittal plane. What are some key muscles that we want to inhibit? But again, inhibition requires facilitation somewhere else. This is why I don't really like stretching or foam rolling even. I know sometimes they feel good, so I understand that. But again, if you want to make something a little more permanent and a little more effective, you're going to have to facilitate. You're going to have to put tension somewhere else in order to take it away from that area that you're feeling chronic tension. So I'm hoping to do one of these after every day. So today was day one, where we talked a lot about the sagittal plane. I know I've repeated myself a bunch, and I'm going to reread over some of the content. And every time I take a course, just a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper. And my goal is that I can just really serve my clients better, whether they be rehab clients, how I can help them get out of these patterns that are causing pain, and into a pattern that's going to be sweet relief, but also a pattern that's going to be more permanent? You know, for my daily living clients who just want to remain healthy, how do I keep them moving from side to side and keep that tension down in a negative way, negative tension, tension that causes pain? How do I keep that down and oscillating from side to side? And then for my athletes, like, how do I get more out of their bodies? Power is such a key athletic component that we want to always try and develop. So how am I going to get these athletes to, achieve proper positions in order to generate the most amount of power without the risk of injury? So these are things that I'm constantly thinking about and immediately start to apply to my clients. So if you have any questions about this, love to hear from you. You can check me out obviously through YouTube. You can even check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/realstrength, or you can go to my website and shoot me an email, or just email me directly rowstrength@gmail.com is a way to email me if you have questions or concerns, or you just want to get in touch with me and ask a question. I'd love to work through this with you, because I'm working through it myself, just trying to learn and understand how to be a better strength coach, how to be a better kinesiologist. So thanks for listening, and stay tuned, because hopefully I'll stay on this and give you updates after the second, third, and fourth days. So thanks so much. Thank you to the Postural Restoration Institute and the faculty there, Ron, and the other instructors, and the people behind the scenes. Just a tremendous organization to be part of. As I'm one of 2 postural restoration trained people in Canada, and there aren't any other health practitioners that are certified by them. I'm not the only one who's taken PRI courses, certainly not. There are many health practitioners that have taken some PRI courses, but there are only 2 of us in Canada that have been certified through the institute. So I'm tremendously grateful for the PRI Nation, for the family of the institute that I'm very proud to be a part of. So thanks again, everybody, and see you on the next one.